All right, let's get going. Let's get this show on the road. Hi, everybody. This is Jeff Hester from Social Hiker, SoCal Hiker, and the Six Pack of Peaks Challenge series. And we're going to talk about GPS navigation basics and some of the things that I use when I'm out on the trail, whether I'm route planning for a new trip or if I'm tracking my trail, trying to navigate some of the tools that I use to get it by. Just as a point of protocol, I guess, if you do have a question, please let me know in the comments and I'll make sure to try to answer all of those questions. Or if you have an idea or a comment or something you'd like to share, please do that in the comments and we'll try to highlight some of the better ones as we go through the session. I mentioned this early as we were just getting started that I am actually streaming this through my iPhone right now. I've got it tethered to my laptop, so we'll see how it goes as far as the video, the streaming quality. Hopefully that this all works. We'll see how that goes. All right, I want to start out by just a couple things, and there's the first thing I want to start out is one thing that I always carry with me when I'm hiking somewhere in the wilderness is a paper map. And a lot of people go, well, why do you need that? And why would you do that? There's a number of good reasons for this. One, it's the very best way to get the broad picture of an area. These maps typically, if you get them at an REI or your local outdoor retailer, you're going to find waterproof and tear-resistant paper. So it's going to stay pretty good even if you're in the weather. And I'm going to just open this one up and share an example. I mean, I can see this is for the San Bernardino National Forest area. And as you can see here, I can see a lot of information on here besides just if the one particular area that I want to look at. So if I were hiking up San Bernardino and I wanted to see, oh, what's that peak over that way, or where's does this trail go? I can get that information on here. And the better trail maps will also have an estimated mileage between junctions and sections of the trail, such as this one from, Calico Maps. So really good example. These are available at your local outdoor retailer, and I highly recommend you bring one along just to kind of support those cartographers and give you a way to kind of lay it out and get a good picture of things. The other reason that I always bring a paper map is because you never know what's going to happen when you're out on the trail. I could have, I may have a route on my phone, but for whatever reason, maybe there's a wildfire that pops up. That's happened many times in the recent years, and in years past. And if I only know the route that I came in on, I'm doing an out and back, or I'm doing a loop, and that might be blocked off by where the wildfire started. So I need to find another way off the mountain safely, and that's where something like this can really help me determine, what are the other routes that I can take, and how do I get out of here. So highly recommend always bringing a paper map. I like to support these. You can also print paper maps off of all trails. You can print them off of Gaia GPS, which I'll be showing a little bit of. You can print them off of other websites like caltopo.com. So a really good resource. But my personal preference are these professionally printed, weatherproof, tear-proof maps. Love them. All right. The second thing along with that is knowing how to use that and get yourself some training. This is a really excellent book from Mountaineers Books called Wilderness Navigation. This is the 3rd edition. And what I like about this is it talks about using GPS. It talks about using smartphone apps and things like that to navigate. But it also talks about using a map and a compass, how to read those things, and why and when to do each of those sorts of things. So I really like this one. It's called Wilderness Navigation, and it's by Bob and Mike Burns. And it's from Mountaineers Press. You can also find this online as well as other folks. Hey, Rob, thanks for joining us. All right, I'm going to jump in and let's talk a little bit about GPS navigation and apps. I'm going to be using Gaia GPS for this demonstration purposes. A lot of the same techniques and concepts apply for all trails or Onyx and other GPS tools that you might use. I'm going to use Gaia GPS just to keep things simple. And let's jump right in. So I happen to have Gaia GPS open. So this is what it looks like on my screen. You can control things like the map layers that you have turned on, and that's one of the things I really love. I have the subscription, so it gives me the ability to turn things on like snow depth. That's not so necessary right now, but a month or two ago in Central Oregon, that was a consideration. And so you can turn on and off these layers. You can add other things like, wildfire information. Well, that might be important. So I can add wildfire information and layer that over my maps. Or I could bring in private lands or satellite views, historic topos, all kinds of different maps that I can bring in that are included in this. And you can turn those on or off. You can change the opacity of those layers. And it's a great way to be able to share a lot of information. Right now, I'm using the Gaia Topo map in feet, English units, and I'm going to just stick with that for now. The other thing that I can do is I can control my map overlays. You can see I have a lot of these little map icons on here. These are waypoints that I've created on previous hikes and trips. I can turn those on or off. I can turn my routes and tracks on or off. I can turn on public tracks. And this is really kind of an interesting way for me to explore an area and some of the trails that maybe other people have seen that I have not. So I can turn on public tracks, and now all of a sudden I start getting, lots of other things popping up on the screen. Like, I want to go to this particular route. I can click on that, and I can see, there's several different tracks, a 6-mile track, Broken Top down. So starting at the top of Broken Top, this partial recording apparently, and I can see, that's 1,800 feet. So you could kind of plan, like if I want to do an out and back, it's going to be 1,845 feet of climbing and 1,845 feet of descent, or somewhere in that neighborhood, and it would be about a little over 12, maybe 12 and a half mile total, out and back to do that. So really cool to be able to go in and turn on and off that kind of information. I can also go in and I can create a new route. So let's say, for example, let's zoom in just a little bit. Whoa, just a little bit. And I'm going to go over here to this Create Route button. And I'll call this, we'll call this Lake Trailhead. I don't know. It's not gonna be a loop, so we'll just say that. And I can go in and let's see. I'll start at the trailhead. Whoop. Let's move that over here to the trailhead. Okay, and now I can start drawing along this trail, and you can see as I move my cursor, I can snap to where the line is, and it auto traces the known trail there. And I'm going to see the elevation profile. So you can see here, it maybe wasn't evident looking at the map view, the top-down view, but I'm actually descending as I go down here. And I'm starting out at 5,440 feet, and I'm going down to 5,100 feet. So I'm doing 331 feet down. And let's say, I want to go over to Quail, and let's say right about there. So somebody's gonna drop me off there and then drive down and park at Meadow Trailhead. And now I've just created a little route. I can see that it's just a little over 2 miles. It's got a little bit of ascent because there's some up and down, here and there, but mainly it's downhill, 377 feet. And if I wanted to make that an out and back, I could have traced that as well. It's a really nice way for me to do that kind of information, kind of get an idea of how long something is, how much vertical gain something is, and is that something I want to look into? Then I can go in and I can start putting in some of the other layers to see even more information. Like I might want to bring in a satellite view. How is that? What does that look like? Is it a lot of trees? And in fact, when we look here on the satellite view, it does look like it's quite a bit of trees. So let's go back here, and I'll maybe make that satellite a little bolder so I can see it a little bit better. And yeah, I'm going to be in the forest pretty much the whole way. Looks like this is a burn area. So you can kind of see that from the satellite view. So it's really, really a lot of rich information in there for you to, be able to, do some route planning and kind of figure out where you want to go. I could also go in and look at, what else might be interesting? I can add a shaded relief so I can see sort of like the terrain a little bit better. In this case, there's not a whole lot of change in that elevation, so we're not going to see that much. But you get this sort of general idea. Now, once I've done that, I can actually go into like my tracks or my routes. And I can download that, or I can save that. I can put it, into, I can put it onto my phone. So basically, I just say, yeah, that's what I want. I want it on my phone. And I can look at my tracks. There's the one that it's not the one I just created. At any rate, you get the general gist of it. Let's switch over here, and I'm going to talk about how that works on your phone. So let me just open up my phone. There we go. All right, so a couple things that I want to point out here. Firstly, I have gotten, let's see. Rob asked, do these layers also show up in mobile? Yeah, they do, and I'll show you how that works. So before I jump in, I'm using an iPhone. Android's very similar. One of the things I've done is I've organized the apps that I use for tracking into a little group. So I have on here Gaia GPS, I have All Trails, I have EarthMate, which I use with my Garmin InReach Mini, if I ever need to use it for SOS, or if I want to text my wife while I'm backpacking, I can do that. And I also, of course, have the Social Hiker app on there, so I can log my hikes on the 6-Pack of Peaks Challenge. And I have my Apple Fitness thing on there, and you can see that I'm a little behind on my exercise today, so tomorrow I'm going to make up for that. I'm going to go into Gaia GPS, and right off the bat, you see on here you can see the tracks that I've recorded and waypoints that I've laid down here. And the interface is going to be a little bit different. So the first thing that I'm going to go to is the layers, which is the icons on the top bar. These icons are configurable by you, so you can kind of choose where they appear and which icons you want. In my case, I have this little layer icon on the top right. Just click on that, and it brings up these map overlays. And so it's the same, all the same maps. I can change the order of these. So I could say I can like turn one off. If I want street maps to be sort of the top one, I can just I can very carefully drag that into the top position, And you can see that now the opacity was changed so that, that's got sort of the precedence. And if I move that back down, it also goes back down. So I can change that. A lot of things I can do with layers there, and I can add, air quality or other types of things. So really handy to be able to have that information. Probably the most important thing for you when you're using an app like Gaia GPS or All Trails, and you're going into the backcountry or going into the wilderness where you may or may not have cell service, or you might have spotty cell service or no cell service at all. When I go backpacking, a lot of the places I go, I'm a couple days from a trailhead and I'm a long way from any kind of cell tower, so there's no cell service that I could rely on. You can still use these apps, but what you need to make sure is that you download the maps for that area first. So for example, 2 weeks ago I climbed South Sister. I can actually click on that area. It'll pull up some of the tracks. So I could say, oh yeah, that's the track that I want. And it's going to pull up some additional information. And one of the options on there when I click on more is download maps for track. And when I do that, it's actually going to say, okay, which maps actually do you want to download? Do you need the street map? Well, in this case, no, but I want to bring the topo map down. And if there were any other maps that I want to include for that route, I can include those. I can choose basically include the data to create and navigate routes for offline. That's going to add 3.4 megabytes. And when I look down below, you can see I've got the Gaia Topo and I have outdoors selected. I'll deselect that. That's going to bring 40 megabytes of data. And it's going to download it to my phone so that even without a data connection, without any cell service, the maps are here and I can see my position because the GPS data still works even when you don't have data or cell service. So because it's using the GPS satellites, that's how that works. If you choose to, in this case, it's using the name of the route, South Sister, and it's saying maps for that route. Or I can edit that if I wanted to, and I can actually add it to a particular folder if I wanted to. Usually the defaults are just fine, so I would just click save, and it's going to start that process. The other thing that you can do, however, and a good reason, let's actually stop that for a second. The other thing that I might do is if I just want to look at a map area, I can go to the maps. Let's see. Where is it? I can go to this plus icon. So the little circle with the plus sign, I click on that. I can say I want to download maps. And now I have 4 points and a little red area there. You can see I can now pick an area that I want to download maps for. Now these other spots that have red are places where I've previously downloaded maps. So I already have those maps on my device. I don't need to download more. But the reason you might do this is so that you can grab a bigger area. So that we talked about before with the paper maps, one of the benefits is I can find alternate routes if I need to. And this is the reason you might do that. So instead of just getting the map tiles for the specific trail or trails that you're planning to do, you can grab a larger area and download that. So another great way to do that. The other thing that you can do is I can click on that. If I go back to that trail, pick on South Sister, I can click on that more icon, and I can get driving directions. And when I pop that open, it's going to open up, either Android or Google Maps or Apple Maps, and it'll start calculating my driving directions. Right now I'm in Vermont, so this is going to be a really long way to go. It's going to take me 3,038 miles to get to the trailhead, and that's obviously not very useful, but it is useful when I'm in town and at home. And that's a great way for you to kind of get directions specifically to a trailhead. Keep in mind that in some cases, people get in trouble using things like Apple Maps or Google Maps to try to navigate, especially to some of the trailheads where you're on Forest Service roads. It's always good to check with the Forest Service, make sure that the trailhead is open, that there's parking available, check on permit requirements. Do you need a National Forest Adventure Pass or some other kind of pass for that? And have that information available. But I do really like that ability for you to just click and say, get me driving directions. The next thing that I like is this, the second item on this pop-up menu, and that is Guide Me. I don't personally use that too much, but it is a handy thing if you're on a place and you want to like get to the trail and make sure that you're in the right spot. Because Guide Me will tell you, okay, you need to bear to the west, and you're 50 yards off of where the trail should be. That's not necessarily always accurate because these GPS or the apps and the data that they contain is bound to change. All these little dashed lines that represent trails. That trail may have changed since the last time that was those maps were drawn up. So sometimes that's not 100% accurate, but it can be really helpful. I'll give you another example from a recent hike that I did on Black Crater, where there were snowfields covering the trail. So as we were climbing to the summit, we put on our micro spikes and got our trekking poles out, and we're climbing over snow where we couldn't see the trail. We'd see it every once in a while. We'd do a map check on Gaia just to make sure we were headed in the right direction, more or less. And that's pretty straightforward when you're going uphill to a summit. As long as you're headed up, you're kind of going in the right direction. As we were coming down is where it's really critical, because it's really easy as you're kind of bombing down the snow field to shoot past or overshoot where the trail turns and starts to wrap around the mountain in that particular case. And so, we'd go down a certain distance and then we'd do a map check with Gaia just to see the little blue dot that shows where we are currently and where the trail is, to make sure we hadn't descended beyond the trail and have to backtrack and climb back up. And so really a handy reason why you might use that Guide Me, or even just use the blue dot and kind of see where you are. I'm going to show you how you would basically center the map on your current location. And that's the second icon from the left on the top. It looks like a little crosshair. And I'm going to click on that, and it takes me to my exact location right now, which is in Vermont. And in this case, you're going to see my location designated by this sort of orangish brown caret that says, oh yeah, that's where I am, and I can zoom in and see a bit more. Now, even more interesting is I can click that crosshair. Now you notice that it's red because it's basically centering the map on my location. If I touch it again, it changes. Now it's showing which direction I'm facing. So if I turn myself this way, look what happens on the map. It starts to show me what I'm looking at in this direction. And if I turn back, now it's looking north, and now I turn again and it's looking west. And so it's a really interesting way for me to be able to see that. And I can click, if I zoom or anything like that, I can tap that again and it goes back to sort of the default view. My compass will show up and I can see which way north is currently. And I can tap that again to reorient north towards the top, which is what we're used to seeing. So a really handy way for you to see sort of where you are in relationship to the trail you're on and where you want to be. Okay, waypoints. We talked a little bit about waypoints I showed some waypoints on some of the trails that I had done previously. I'm going to show you the easiest way for you to create a waypoint using Gaia GPS. And basically, that's by just going in to this camera icon, which is in green right now. So if I click on the camera icon, I'm going to just take a picture of my laptop, and there it is. I could say use photo, and now it's created a waypoint which is designated by this little camera icon. That's the very easiest way for you to kind of tag a location. And oftentimes I'll do that if I want to remember a good campsite or a good water source or maybe a junction that's important. I don't want to miss that turn, or I want to help somebody find their way more easily. So you can create those waypoints, and they can be part of a track if I were recording, and that's typically what I do. So if I'm tomorrow, I'm planning to do a hike up Burke Mountain. It's about a 2,000-foot climb, and we're going to start down here near the ski parking area, and we're going to follow a trail that kind of goes up and runs up here. And when I do my hike, I'll actually hit record, and it'll start recording my activity, my hike throughout that route. And I'll know how far I've traveled. I'll know how much vertical gain and how much descent. I'll know all of that information. And if I use that little camera icon along the way, I'll be able to know, oh yeah, that's the junction that I saw. This is where we crossed a road. This is what the fire tower looked like up on the summit. All of that information. In this case, I'm not going to actually record a track because I'm indoors. So, and then let's see. The last thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about is saving battery on a device like this. So I'll switch back over to this. One of the things, obviously I'm plugged in right now so that I can stream this. Hopefully it's working well enough. One of the things that is tricky sometimes about using a device like this is that the batteries tend to run out. And so a couple things. One, firstly, make sure that you're working with a fully charged phone when you get to the trailhead. If you're using your phone to help you navigate to the trailhead, make sure that you have it plugged in to the power outlet on your phone, in your vehicle, so that it's not running down the phone and you're starting at a deficit right when you leave the trail. The second thing that I'll suggest is that you put it into airplane mode. So I just swipe down, I click on that little airplane icon at the top, and voila, I'm in airplane mode. GPS still works. So I can click on my, even when I'm in airplane mode, I can click on that icon and it's going to show me where I'm at. So that's a really cool thing about that particular feature. The last thing that I do is I will typically bring a power brick with me. And I don't actually have one handy with me right now. There's one on the table across in the other room. But I'll bring a little power brick and just have that fully charged as well, so that if I am going to be out for a long, long day hike and I don't want to run out of power, that's a great way for me to kind of top off as it gets down low. Oh, here we go. This is an example. I have a few of these of different sizes. This one happens to be just a little bit smaller than my iPhone. I don't know. Let's see if I can hold that right. There we go. And there's a lot of good models of these different little power bricks. This one's 8,000 mega amps, and I'm not even sure who makes this particular one. Mophie. But I've got Anchor and a couple other models of these different sizes. To give you just a general idea, last year when I did the Grand Teton Trail, we did it over 4 days. So 4 days I was in the backcountry, no power outlets or anything like that. And I took along a slightly larger version of this. And the I was able to every night. I was using my phone to track. I was using my phone as a camera as well, and I was topping off the charge on my iPhone, and I was also topping off the charge on my Apple Watch, and that got me through 4 days, 4 full days. Backpacking, hiking, using it all day long, and so you can definitely do it, and I just recommend doing something like that. If you have something like a Garmin watch, those have a much longer battery life. They'll last for several days at least, and can do a lot of the same functionality, albeit on a much smaller screen than you would have on your smartphone. But now, and the question, Candy says, "Oh, it skipped what I said about to put it in airplane mode." I'm not going to demonstrate that in this particular. Well, let's see. Maybe I can. I won't change the settings. I'm going to go back in here. All right. So basically, I clicked on that little orange or that airplane in the top corner there, and put it into airplane mode. So the GPS will still actually work even when you're in airplane mode. And if you've downloaded the maps while you're at home before you go to the trailhead, you'll have the full ability to navigate, see where you're at, see where the trail is, be able to look around. So that's probably going to save you most of your battery right there, just putting it in airplane mode. So, any questions? I know I haven't been able to follow exactly how well this has been streaming, but if you do have any questions, leave me a comment and I'll try to address those. Or we will be posting a video of this, or video recording of this, and it'll be a blog post on Social Hiker. So if you have some, specific questions beyond that, you can add those as a comment right in that blog post, and we'll get you an answer to that as well. One of the things I didn't really go into in this session was all trails. I know that a lot of people love to use all trails. I have all trails on my phone. It's a decent app. It doesn't have quite as many options and bells and whistles as Gaia GPS, which is why I like Gaia. But it's perfectly good, and it's a good app for you to use. The one thing that I always am a little bit hesitant to do, recommend all trails for is the crowdsourced material, because some people will, one person will say, "Oh, this hike was really hard and very strenuous or dangerous even," and somebody else will say, "Oh, this hike was really easy," the same hike. And that's not that one person is lying. It's just that everybody has a different perspective, and for some person, this might be very difficult and very hard, and for somebody else, it might be a walk in the park. And so you always have to take the reviews and the comments from the crowd with a healthy dose of salt, a grain of salt, because you just never know. The best thing to do is to look at the stats. Look at the mileage, look at the vertical gain, look at the descent, look at the photos that go with it, so you get an idea of the terrain, and then knowing your own ability, you'll be able to say, "Oh yeah, I do 10, 12 miles all the time. I do 2,000 feet of vertical all the time. So I can handle this trail because I know the stats are well within my ability." Maybe I don't know quite, is there any scrambling or something that I might be uncomfortable with? I won't necessarily know that right out the gates, but at least I'll know that the basic stats are going to be something that I can handle. All right, I don't see any other questions come in, and I want to apologize in advance for any streaming issues that we've had. I really hope that we would have that all resolved, and unfortunately, I've had to use my phone's data to do the streaming. So we're hopefully the recording is going to be a little bit better, And I want to thank you guys. Thanks, Rob and Candy and everybody else who was able to stop in for joining tonight. And if you do have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments as we post this in the blog post down below, and we will get you answers to those. All right. Thanks all for joining, and have a great evening.